Highlights an issue that's important both nationally and locally here in Johnson County: childcare. Nationally, the cost of childcare has been on the rise. According to a November 2024 report from the United States Department of Labor, families in the U.S. spend between 8.9% and 16% of their annual income on full-day care for just one child. Here in Johnson County, childcare is not only expensive, but it's also often hard to access. According to a 2023 report from the City of Iowa City, there has been a 12% decrease in childcare programs from 2017 to 2022. To mitigate staff shortages, Johnson County began a pilot program to increase wages for childcare workers. For tonight's discussion on this important issue, we have three excellent speakers who are working to address these problems facing families in Johnson County. Allison Bettine is the Director of Childcare Workforce Development at 4Cs of Johnson County. In this role, she works with consultants to identify ways to support the childcare workforce through creating networking opportunities, developing best business practices for programs to ensure success, and developing additional training opportunities to support the work. Rachael Bonefas is a child care consultant supervisor at Iowa City Child Care Resources and Referrals, serving the Southeast Iowa region, including Johnson County. Child Care Resource and Referral, CCR&R, is a program to support quality child care throughout the state of Iowa. Her organization facilitates many types of professional development opportunities for professionals doing the important work of caring for children. Jana Garrelts, thank you. That was the one I was most nervous about. Is early childhood director at Neighborhood Centers of Johnson County. Neighborhood centers work together with neighbors and neighborhoods to build better futures through education, outreach, and inclusive programs that celebrate diversity, strengthen families, and create safe spaces for community. In their work, the neighborhood centers offer early learning programs which provide high-quality, inclusive education for children to foster academic, social, and emotional growth. I will now turn the program over to League of Women Voters of Johnson County's Education Committee co-chair Susan Enzel, who will be posing questions to our panel.
Thank you, Sammy. And thank you all for joining us this evening for, I think, an extremely important program. I'm going to dive right into the questions, and why don't we start with Jana, if you would be the first, and then just go down the line, and people can elaborate if they have additional information they want to share. But we have a lot of questions, and we will allot time at the end of the presentation so that audience members can ask questions as well. Our first question is, our audience this evening comprises folks in different stages of life. If you needed to explain to a person without young children why the availability, quality, and affordability of childcare is an issue of importance to them, what would you say?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is an issue that affects families, particularly, I'm going to say women, but families. This is an important thing for them to know that they can have access to that. And if access is low, it's not available, it's unaffordable, this affects the family structure, how families will work. And so without childcare and quality childcare, where you know your child is safe and well taken care of, how will the family work? When will the family work? Where will the family work? So childcare is an issue for the family and for work.
It really is a workforce development issue, and that impacts every single industry. And when it comes to quality childcare, it is about a state of mind that it gives the parents this feeling of security and stability, because the children experience quality education and they come home feeling fulfilled and empowered and really regulated, right? So when childcare is unable to fulfill the family's needs, then those workers who are the parents, which we know is, 75% of parents are working, their industries are affected. So as a worker myself, and with 5 children now, and then also as an employer, there are so many ways that just a fever can trickle down and affect the entire system. So when somebody's child calls, the school calls in sick, and then the worker calls in sick, and then the administrator then exits their office to do that work, right? What things are falling through the cracks because childcare is not accessible?
And I would add on to that at an even higher level, if a family can't find childcare at all, it's not just a day that their child is sick, but they can't find childcare at all and they have to quit their job. And then that company is then having to spend more money to hire and onboard new people, and this continues to happen over and over as there's a lack of childcare. Then the business is spending more money, and we know that costs are passed on to the consumers, which is all of us in the community. So there's this huge, it's not just affecting a child or a family or one business, it's affecting all of us in the community.
Thank you. I think that gives us a good overview of the significance of having quality, affordable childcare here in Johnson County. Moving to the policy impacts, which state or federal policies have made the biggest differences for children in Johnson County? Would you like to start, Allison?
I was like,
How could you tell? The top of mind policy for me actually happened a few years ago, and originally I wasn't a parent at the time, to be honest, and I was only a child care provider, so my view was very, direct. But what happened was we were allowed as child care providers to charge the difference between a CCA reimbursement rate and a private pay rate. And that's an incredible boon to the child care provider. There is so much income lost when you do serve low-income families. However, I believe it incentivizes providers to discriminate. It is legal, and yet many centers will have a cap on how many low-income families they will serve. And I think that that's really and that's heavy information that I think everyone should just know. When you are selecting a center, you will know exactly what the demographic is if you ask them, what's your CCI cap, right?
Can you explain what CCA
Oh,
is?
yes, I'm so sorry. So child
jargony.
Yeah. My friends are like, yes. CCA stands for Child Care Assistance. It's a state assistance program that allows folks to access child care at a lower rate. It's similar to like Medicaid and food assistance in the sense that it's income-based. So in order to be eligible, you have to meet certain income guidelines. So if you have CCA, you are low income, right? CCA is also automatically granted to child care workers, which is a good policy. So I don't know if you want to talk about that. But the difference that I'm talking about is, say, private pay rate is $1,500 a month, which is obviously incredibly high, like ridiculously high, higher than my mortgage high, right? And so that's the going rate for like an infant child care monthly tuition. CCA is reimbursing probably about 60% of that at this time. And so if this is like the full rate of private pay, CCA is going to be reimbursed 60%. And so that remaining amount could be up to like a few $100s. And that cost is then passed on to the family who has already been identified as low income. And so of course they can't actually afford that. Like that's completely unrealistic. One family like 2 years ago came to me and they were like, the difference is $900 for two of their kids. And they were like, we can't afford $900. Like we're on CCA and food assistance and Medicaid. And their life was just like turned upside down by that policy. So as a provider, I was like, score, income, right? And then I met with my families and I saw the ways that this impacted them. So that I think would be a policy that was well-intended but had really, really dangerous outcomes, both for families and then also providers, because we can't actually find people to pay the difference because they can't afford it, right? So.
Thank you. Rachel.
I know Jana wanted to talk about a little bit about this, but Allison alluded to just a couple of years ago, the state instituted CCA for all child care employees. so staff working in childcare programs can get that CCA reimbursement for their own children that are attending childcare, and I think that has been huge. I'll let Jana talk a little bit more, but that has been a very positive policy that the state has implemented to attract and retain quality staff in childcare programs. But Jana, you're living in that, so you go ahead.
Things bouncing around in my head, so I'm going to go with the one that first popped up in my head. I'm going to speak a little to the continuum of care that was put in place just last year. So the continuum of care is meant to have children who get universal preschool or the statewide voluntary preschool programming that the school district provides, and then wrapping it into full day care. This is good for families. It's bad for childcare centers. This is not helpful for the childcare industry. It is, in a way, kind of taking some of those families that help fund the childcare industry. And so our older kids, our 4-year-olds, help balance out. They have a lower cost per child than the infants do. And so you need the balance of birth to 5 in a center to really make sure the center can break even. Without that, centers are starting to close. Centers are starting not to break even, and they cannot sustain or maintain what they're doing at a level where they're losing money. So this is really important. And so I think the impact, the intention was good for families to provide that continuum of care, but the impact on childcare industry and the childcare centers and homes might not be seen yet. And so I just think that looking to the community for a solution versus saying, okay, we're just going to take all 4-year-olds to the schools and provide this, which, again, we know families need full day care and they need affordable preschool, but how do we bring community partners in and do it with community partners instead of taking all 4-year-olds to the statewide voluntary preschool program? That was my first thought.
And can I add on too, you mentioned home providers, because there are a lot of childcare home providers that provide high quality care. But home providers have a limited number of children they can care for, because it's usually just one child. And they're allowed only 4 children ages 2 and under. So again, like to Jana's point, you need that range of ages to be able to make enough income to support your home, your family, your business, whatever it may be. So taking all of those 4 and 5-year-olds out of that, then they're left with only maybe being able to care for 4 children. And that's typically not enough income to sustain the business.
So I just want to clarify, the legislation you're talking about that allowed for providers to collect additional money above the CCA, the Child Care Assistance, was state legislation?
Yes.
Okay. And what about the other one in terms of as things move from taking children away from the daycare and putting them into official preschool? Is that state policy, or is that?
It was a governor initiative
Okay.
last year. It was the first time we had kind of heard of it, where they were trying to, and different schools and places are doing it differently, but this part-day preschool or this universal preschool, where do they go after to provide full day care? And so that was a question parents were asking, and so the solution was to have just the school take care of all of it.
So people were trying to address really important questions with
Yes.
good intentions.
With good intentions.
And the fallout has been, to a certain extent, unintended.
Yes.
We actually were discussing earlier how universal preschool is something that we all believe in. We actually, I think, believe in universal childcare, but the unintended outcomes are mostly because it's half day. So I don't know if anyone in here has a preschooler, but the school district is offering half day preschool. So at about 11:30, correct? 11:45.
10:45.
Oh, 10:45. Goodness, that's like still the morning.
10:45 a.m.
The school day ends for the preschoolers at 10:45. So then what do? You take a lunch break as a parent and then drive them over to a daycare. Wonderful programs like Jana's. I think you're doing transportation? No? Oh, well, some of them
I'm
are.
going to address what you're saying right after you're done talking.
Well, there's certainly challenges facing families who have the half-day preschool. So it's affordable because it's free, but what new systems have to be in place for it to be successful?
Just to kind of follow up on that a little bit, so at neighborhood centers, we have the statewide voluntary preschool program in our 4-year-old preschools. So we have licensed teachers, and we have children enrolled, and they get to stay with the same teacher all day in the same classroom, and they get to do year-round. So they have a full day, full year option with this preschool that's been offered. The part-day preschool of it has been offered. And so that's how I know it can be done with community partners, because we're doing it. So I think that's a way to bring in the community in this versus say, let's take the burden off of the child care centers and the in-home, and we'll just take care of all 4-year-olds. I think over time we will see the impacts of that not be great for our county for child care.
Another question I'm interested in is who is most impacted by child care shortages in Johnson County? Single parents, low-income parents, immigrant parents, all of the above, others? Could you tell us a little bit about who suffers the most if there's not
I feel like
good
we want to
childcare?
say everyone.
Yes. The answer
All
is
of the
yes.
above.
You want to go first?
I mean, it is all of the above. All of them are impacted probably in slightly different ways, but, and I know you guys can both speak very clearly to low-income families. You serve many of those in the programs that you guys work with. But we have many English language learners that are trying to open programs, and 4Cs has done a lot to work with those programs, but helping them navigate the system and find families and connect the families with the providers. There are just so many challenges that you guys are boots on the ground here doing more of this work day to day than I am, so I'll let you talk a little bit more.
Well, to that, I'll say yes, everyone that you listed is affected by this. If you don't have childcare, again, back to the first question, someone's not working then, or the child's in a place that maybe isn't as safe or high quality so that someone can work. So it could be the child, it could be the family, one member, both members. But also then for businesses, we have worker shortages sometimes too. So if someone's not working because of childcare, the businesses are affected as well. So I want to say it does affect kind of the whole community. So the shortage is always something to keep in the front of the mind, how it can take its toll on everybody, so.
I think from my own experience running Home Ties, which is a low barrier childcare facility here in Iowa City run by 4Cs, we primarily serve families with CCA, but we also have a number of spots that are specifically funded by the county social services and Johnson County Empowerment that are meant to be held for folks who are experiencing homelessness or in transitional housing situations, maybe in a mental health or substance use recovery program, DVIP, shelter house, teen parent program at UAY, right? Those programs that are not long-term housing options. As we know, crises don't occur in a bubble, so if you're facing a housing instability, you're also probably facing job instability and mental health instability and food access issues, right? So I think while it's everyone, I think folks who are job seeking, seeking housing, seeking safety are probably the most affected by the shortage. Programs like ours are very, very unique. And while we're very, very proud of what we do, it's not available everywhere. Iowa City, Johnson County, we're very lucky to have this type of thing available. And when someone who is unhoused has access to affordable childcare, free, where we are, right, then they have the time, maybe even just like the mental capacity to consider their safety, consider finding a job, figuring out transportation options. So when we're thinking about like what does childcare actually do for people, it's it's everything in those situations.
Okay, thank you. Looking forward, you can either feel pretty hopeless or you can choose to be hopeful. What's one solution or pilot program in effect, either here in Iowa or elsewhere, that gives you hope? Rachel, would you start, please?
Sure. I would say a couple things, and it might not necessarily be a program, but my role, Child Care Resource and Referral, is contracted through HHS to support child care programs. So I get to see kind of what HHS is looking at and prioritizing as far as child care is concerned. And I have seen in the last few years a definite push to provide additional support to child care programs. And right now they're looking at staffing. Staffing is a huge issue. We haven't even talked about that, but just child care programs being able to find enough staff and quality staff to work in their programs. That's a huge barrier to staying open and filling the need for child care for all the children out there that need it. But also educating those staff and training them, making sure they have high quality training, and the state is looking at that as far as how do we support those teachers. And so we're looking at providing more coaching rather than just you need this many hours of training. It's like get the training and we're going to have someone come in and work with you and coach you so that you implement that training so you become a stronger teacher and the kids are in a better, higher quality environment. So that is something, just one thing that I have seen that is very promising, that the state is looking at that and saying, how do we grow the workforce in child care to provide better care for children?
Want to talk about wage enhancement?
I don't know what you talk about that one. You go ahead.
Wage enhancement is a program that has been done really well locally. For those of you who are not familiar with it, it's a really community-wide effort to increase the hourly wage of child care workers. It is adding $2 extra per hour for all full-time child care workers, and that has really brought stability to the child care workforce in this county. The average, I think, was recently $12.75. Many centers are much lower than that, to be quite honest, and home providers are certainly not making nearly that at all. The wage enhancement program, I think, has so much potential to completely change the future of childcare and the quality of childcare, because by incentivizing full-time workers, you're creating longer-term employment options, which provides stability for the children, so they're seeing the same faces every day. I am a foster parent, and the change in a caregiver causes so much distress to a child, right? So having the same teacher, like Jana was saying, every day, it's everything to a child's development, actually. So I have a lot of hope for the wage enhancement program.
I'm going to speak to the child care assistance pilot program that was offered, and Rachel spoke to it a little bit earlier, but it was offered to staff who are working in child care centers. They are actually, if they're over income for child care assistance, they would still be eligible to receive that. They'd still have a portion that they would need to pay on their own, but as long as they're working 32 hours or more in a child care center, they're eligible to receive child care assistance for their children. This has helped us, again, the stability, higher quality staff that are able to come in and say, this is a real big bonus. It's hard to find affordable childcare. I'll bring in some skills, and this is an eligible program. This has been very helpful for staffing stability, again, the higher quality of staff along with that. So,
where is the money coming from to pay daycare providers more?
the local one.
Oh, the wage enhancement?
Yes, yes.
There's a few different funding sources. I think, to be honest, it's it's piecemealed together right now because we're trying really hard.
Patchwork quilt of,
Oh, yeah, very on theme. There is some money that has been allocated, I believe, from Lost, the local option sales tax. That is not true. Somebody is shaking their head. Don't repeat that. It's
ARPA.
from ARPA. Next year. Yeah.
and what's ARPA?
COVID funding.
Okay. American Relief
Yes.
Rescue Act.
But in the future, Lost should be kicking in a little bit, right?
Like a year and a half,
Yeah.
when they start collecting that tax, then there will be 100,000, from what I understand, from the city,
Yeah.
from the city of Iowa City alone.
TBD on the other
That's-
cities.
That's my job, is to go find the rest of it.
Yeah. There's other businesses that have believed in this project and see the benefit and have supported it. Yeah.
The University of Iowa, Green State, ACT, so many local businesses,
Large employers.
large employers have.
Yeah.
So it's truly a public-private partnership. Okay. While we're on it, is there anything else you'd like to add that sounds hopeful?
I've got a few things.
Yeah.
If you're
Okay,
okay with that, I got a few
We've
other
already
things.
identified
Almost
three
a
big
shout
ones.
out in this place. I actually want to speak a little bit to IAEYC, which is the Iowa Association for the Education of Young Children. They sponsor something that also helps with staffing stability, is the Teach and Wages program, and that's a state level instead of a local. So there's a wage enhancement here in Johnson County, but then there is the wages program with the IAYC, which also does, I believe it's like every 6 months you get a bonus based on your education. So if you've received a level called the CDA, a Child Development Associate, you're eligible for this much money every 6 months. And they're on the website. If you want to look and see how much that is, I don't know it exactly, but as you move up the education scale, you're eligible for more money every 6 months paid out. And so that is a beautiful program. I probably have about 10 staff using that. It's really wonderful. And then the TEACH program, which is a scholarship to help staff who are working in childcare programs at least 30 hours a week or more. They're eligible to get their education in early childhood, some assistance with that. And it pays, I'd say, majority of it and time out of the classroom and things like that. So it supports our teachers becoming higher quality. Again, more stability within that. The children will benefit because they're having teachers who have higher degrees and more education in the field. So those two programs have been incredibly helpful for my center. So
I have so much hope because of the people at this table, to be honest. Like, not even just trying to like fluff people up, but Neighborhood Centers of Johnson County has been an incredible partner with 4Cs. This past year, there have been so many new providers that work with all three of us, actually, to become registered home providers. There is family support workers that speak every single language in Johnson County, working at Neighborhood Centers of Johnson County. The consultants at CCR&R, I mean, we're always texting and trying to figure out the most efficient way to get people registered, to reduce barriers. So sometimes, you know, her team will text a PDF to me that I'll print at my office and bring to somebody's house. It's just, the collaboration is really, really beautiful, and I'm so proud to be a part of this system. Home providers, I think, are the last thing that I want to just shout out. Home providers, I think, there's a lot of scary stories on the internet, and we might as well just recognize that, right? But I think of home providers in the same way that I think of foster homes. So as somebody who has like a couple extra kids staying with me, the alternative for a few of them would have been a group home, right? And while as a center director, I love my center, I believe in what we do and the incredible connections and quality that we offer. There is something really beautiful and comfortable and that you just don't quite get at a center that a home provider can offer. So I think that home providers, while sometimes there's a lot of distrust and fear, I'm here to tell you that every single home provider that I work with is so loving and committed to being a professional and, you know, establishing their business as trustworthy and quality. And so I'm hopeful that that is something that grows in our area, but, you know, there are some challenges that they're facing right now, like Rachael was saying about the amount of kids that they now can provide for, which is impacting their business.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I was a home provider for 13 years. It's not an easy career, but it is so rewarding. And there are many, many just wonderful people out there doing that. But I'm also very encouraged by groups like this and organizations and partnerships that are talking about childcare and bringing it to the forefront, making people who might not have kids or don't think that it affects them a topic that everyone's discussing and seeing the importance of it. So I am encouraged, and I think, like I said, from what I hear from HHS at the state level, they're hearing it. They're trying to make changes and improvements, and so we should be hopeful. There are lots of reasons to be hopeful. So,
If we did nothing over the next 5 years, there's some things that are going now that are very helpful and should be continued. Some things going now should be changed because we have the data that would suggest it's backfired in some ways. I'm thinking about the CCA issue. But what if we didn't go any further? What would things be like in 5 years?
I guess I worry that there'll be, centers will be closing if we keep some of this stuff in place because of the affordability. If 4-year-olds are removed, maybe centers aren't able to stay open. That scares me. I worry about that. So that's one of those considerations that if we don't do anything, how many centers will we lose in 5 years if it's not addressed or if it's not?
Because each center could only have 4 children.
Well, no, if we lose 4-year-olds, then you have to increase having more kids at this age, and you lose money with children kind of 0 to 3. Okay. And you have a little more money on the 4 to 5. So you need the balance. Okay. So serving a birth to 5 range is important for a center. And I know some centers don't even serve 0 to 2 because they lose so much money on it. And so what will centers become and you know, for me, if a center has to close down and you have to put your 4-year-old here and, you know, this here, you know, you want a center that takes birth to 5. That means your child can stay there all the way up to kindergarten. That's good continuity. And so for me, that feels good. But I don't know. What's a thought I've had. What's the impact and if we don't address this?
I think that is on top of the programs closing, like Jana said, and then all the impacts that we talked about at the beginning of this, how it affects the whole community if childcare programs are closing, and how it affects those people who've made this their career, and you know the loss of their jobs, their careers. So I think, you know, we have seen an increase in closures of programs over the last few years. And if we do nothing, I think that will just, like Jana said, that will probably continue. And then we'll be scrambling to find another way to provide care for all the children that need it.
I think people will be leaving the workforce. I was walking out the door and IPR was playing at home, which is fun that they're here now. And what was on was actually a piece about how people are saying that they're just going to leave the workforce because they actually make less than their childcare costs. So they're like, it's not worth it. I think that's going to have a major, major impact on every industry. And while actually that sounds really fun for me, it's about a choice, right? Like, I think that if you want to stay home, you absolutely should. But I don't want to live in a society where you're forced to live a way that you don't want to.
Okay. You've talked about, we talked a little bit about retention of child care workers, and obviously paying people more helps to retain them. And I'm hearing giving them educational opportunities so that they can gain more skills also builds confidence and abilities in those teachers. Are there other things that are done or could be done to retain capable child care workers?
Medical benefits. I think that's a really big one that a lot of childcare providers don't have.
Medical benefits.
No medical benefits.
Most childcare programs can't offer medical benefits or much paid leave or any of those benefits that a bigger company would be able to provide to employees. And also, there's a discrepancy. Staff working in early childhood programs are teachers. They are teaching the youngest children, but they do not get the same respect and benefits as teachers in the public school system. They work year-round. They don't get summers off. They get much less pay, next to no benefits, all of those things for probably just as much, if not more, work and emotional stress that comes with doing daily care for young children. So that discrepancy pulls people out of, a lot of times we'll see if they start working on a degree while they're working in an early childhood program, then they leave to work in the schools because they can get better income and benefits.
Do you see any way, say, here locally, that that problem could be resolved? If you had a wish, or two or three?
I don't, off the top of my head. I know there have been points in time where groups have looked at organizing a union to represent childcare employees to be able to get them benefits, but it has never been able to work out in Iowa. I know other states it has, but Iowa has never gotten hold and worked out.
I think the solution is state-funded childcare.
Assume, because that would assume that there would be fair wages for the teachers and benefits that would go along with being a
Right, so like
State funding.
as an administrator, the only way to increase staff pay is to pass that cost on to the family, right?
Which families cannot afford. They're already paying, we talked about at the beginning, they're already paying a large portion of their income just for childcare.
Did you want to add anything, Jana?
I'm not just, I feel, I'm like almost feel bad on this topic because at neighborhood centers, we do pay our staff. We have benefits, we have paid time off, we have sick leave. We do that for our staff. And again, I only have 2 staff that I've hired in the last year. I have staff that have been there for almost 30 years. We retain our staff because we do these things. We also have a lot of funding in place that we're able to tap in so that we have stability of funding so that we can provide those things. So all staff that are working 30 hours or more are eligible for the benefits.
And are those benefits through the city then?
Nope, they're
They're through
us.
the
So that is something that we've taken on. And
You should not be shy about that.
No, but
You should be very proud.
I have a different problem than most childcare centers. This
You
is not my problem. This is not our issue. But we've put those things in place, and that's why I know this will work for retention because people have access to those things that make them feel valued as an employee. I want to stay here. I feel good about this place. So
And it makes a huge difference in retention then of employees.
absolutely.
Okay. When a daycare or child care center closes its doors because it can't make ends meet or get staff, what's the impact on the community as a whole? And think not only about Iowa City, but the more rural parts of the county.
I could speak to what happened out in like the Muscatine area.
Yeah.
We had so many calls from that area looking desperately for childcare, which I read the article. I heard about it on the news. It sounded horrific, and I thought it wasn't even going to touch our community. But people are so desperate that they were reaching out to daycares in Johnson County. That's how desperate their childcare need was, right? So I ended up taking a few families who are driving all the way from Muscatine because their childcare center closed. Because of the government shutdown, the daycare couldn't stay open. And that is wild to me. Every day, she's driving from Muscatine.
Okay, any other comments?
Again, different problem. We're expanding right now, not, not closing down. And so I can only imagine. We're based in the neighborhoods that we serve, and a lot of our families walk. Mm-hmm. They don't have access to transportation, and they can't drive 45 minutes. They don't have a car. Like, where could they go? How could they get there, and maybe still get to work on time? And just how it disrupts the family and their ability to be stable and function if your child care center were to close.
I'm thinking about always how precious your neighborhood elementary school is, where ideally, if you are in the town, you can walk to school, walk home from school, maybe even for lunch. And so your neighborhood center, daycare, preschool program allow that, but that's not possible for people in many other areas.
Rural areas.
Not if you're having to drive also from Muscatine because there's not adequate daycare there.
So.
Yeah.
And like we mentioned at the beginning, that impact on businesses, if families have to stay home with their child now because they can't find childcare anywhere, then those businesses are losing employees and trying to fill those gaps and all that, so that affects everyone. But also, I think sometimes we see when there's that desperation for childcare, especially in maybe a rural area, that's when we hear those horror stories about home providers taking 20 kids because everybody's just like, I have no other option. So illegally operating programs, which is a scary proposition.
Well, I've asked all the questions I have at the moment, so I'd like to open up questions to the audience. And Kathleen will have the microphone, and if you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand. And when you get the microphone, it's your turn to speak.
I'm going to start out with a question that I have. Do you know of other states where you think they have policies that are more supportive of childcare, and could you comment on those?
I honestly don't. I'm sorry. I don't know that. I'm so sorry.
The biggest one this past year was New Mexico is doing universal childcare.
Right, I knew.
And the most recent one is New York City. That's a
So
really
New York
exciting
City
one.
has started their universal childcare.
Yeah, it's probably this week has
Very
been all
early.
over the news. Yeah, so it's very, very early in the process, but that's the goal.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a staff member threatening to move to New York.
Do you know how New Mexico is funding this?
I don't. Does anybody know? We have a few people in here that.
I read an article, but I do not remember the details of where the funding was coming. They've been working towards this for many years, and just kind of, it sounded like stockpiling money from different things to have this base, but I don't remember the details of how they're planning to continue it.
Okay, because they also have large rural areas, so they face some of the same constraints that Iowa does. People spread out in large areas. They have some urban centers, but not a lot.
I mean, I'm trying to think the only way to get public dollars is taxes, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
Okay, questions?
Okay, I'm happy to bring this around. I'm a little gimpy, so.
Could any of you speak to the disproportionate incomes this has on women specifically, like how this affects the gender dynamic in families?
I don't have any statistics or
Oh, anecdotally.
specifically women. I would say in our center, we do serve a lot of families. I want to give acknowledgement to families, but we do have a number of single moms who are doing it on their own, work, and they have to go to childcare. We're their everything. They have to do everything beyond it all the time, and so I always look to that. Even if there's a partner in the family that maybe working different shifts, I feel like there is a parent that it's responsible for, and it usually falls to the mom, where they're going to work, they're going to come pick the kid up, and they're going to take care of them at night, and then they have to get up and do it again the next day. And so, when's the rest? When's the break? That's the toll, I think, and it disproportionately affects the women. So, especially in the early years and the early care years. So,
It's no surprise that to any of you, I think that women are often the default child care giver, right? I have a few recent phone calls that I'm thinking of where either the father is contacting because of a recent separation, or the mother has been hospitalized, and one gentleman said, "It's a whole new world. I don't understand any of this. I don't know how to figure out the timing between school pickup and daycare pickup and the activities." And I think that really speaks to how much women carry, right? This unpaid labor. When we talk about caregiving in this capacity, we're talking about paid caregiving, but there's so much care that happens in our community that is unpaid, that is simply expected, right? Whether it is for your own kids or for your neighbor or the church member, we live in an economy that absolutely requires care. Right now we're talking about the industry, but care is the base of our entire society, right? And unfortunately that does seem to be heavily weighted on women, and specifically single parents, right?
And I'll say, talking about mothers as single parents and caring for their children, but we also have many single mothers opening their own in-home childcare programs. There are many, because maybe they couldn't find childcare, so they say, I'll stay home so I can be with my kids and take on a few others to try to support myself. But with that comes there's no insurance provided. They don't have any benefits. So again, all of that falling on top of this single parent, this single woman maybe, to provide for her family and the care for these other children that she's trying to help their families. And then how do you get that insurance to cover medical issues and all that? So there is a lot on women in particular when it comes to this topic, yes.
Another question.
First, thank you all for this panel. It's been really, really interesting to learn more about the details. But one thing I've kind of noticed as a theme throughout the discussion this evening was I'm a political scientist, so this is going to be a very political scientist-y question. So I've noticed that there's been a lot of discussion about the different levels of government and the way that the state gets involved, the way the county gets involved, the way the federal government gets involved. Are there... do you see particular strengths in each of these different levels of government getting involved in trying to solve some of these issues? Have you found that has it worked better working with the county? And how has all of your roles, how has it been working as community partners with the different state and local agencies mostly to try to come up with solutions to some of these problems? And do you think that there are problems that are best solved by one of these, by the state, by the county, by the federal government? That might be a little loaded, but...
You got a lot in that question, Sammy. I think I'm going to address the different levels. I think the higher up you get in the levels, the less in tune they are with what's actually happening on the ground. And so sometimes that's why those policies were like, what? Why did you create that policy? That makes no sense to us here. I think when you have local, like city, county, your voice is heard more. It's what's really happening. And so that's what I see. Like, I've been in groups where it's like, hey, this is what's really happening here in Johnson County. Let's address that issue. And so I feel like that's where wage enhancement here came from. So I feel like, yes, local is going to do a better job of solving the problems that are right in front of us. I don't want to, say the state's not done anything good, because they have. But sometimes the policies that are put in place aren't necessarily in tune with what's really happening. And that's kind of,
Contact your legislators, right?
Yeah, that's what you can do.
Sometimes I think it's a game of telephone where people locally know what's going on and we advocate, and it maybe by the time it becomes code, it's a little bit different. Yeah. I think someone recently was describing this as like you plug one hole and then another one opens and then you plug another hole, and that is what it feels like sometimes, where we're like, okay, amazing, we get to charge the difference for CCA, and now we have this new issue, and now it's closing centers, and so we solved universal pre-K, but now we're losing all of our centers, and so it's constantly a battle of doing the right thing and then having so many unintended consequences and having to then patch that, and patchwork.
I would say too, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong with your experiences working more with local county governments and things like that, they are more in tune, and they are, I feel like you get more involvement and people who really are in the work and understand the problems, and more passion there to fix it at a local level. But there isn't always the money available to do enough to fix it. We're trying to ask people for money and grants and things like that. That's not sustainable long term. So that's when, maybe we need to look at those higher level of governments. How do we take this issue to them and say, we need your help to make this a sustainable fix? So I think that's kind of how those levels work together.
Which the child care program, giving child care providers CCA automatically, was a pilot and now is permanent. And that was a result of people contacting their legislators and being like, this made a difference. In the past 2 years, this changed the future. And so that is now permanent, and that's amazing, right?
I'm a director of a nonprofit center in Iowa City, and a big hurdle we've had is that I don't think has really been talked about is the barrier to access the wage enhancement, the wages, the TEACH program, is that you have to be IQ4K rated. I'm the director of 2 buildings. I'm the only office staff. I'm the cook. I'm the sub. I can't do it. I mean, there's no way after we went through QRS and then they eliminated QRS. So I wondered if there'd been any discussion about how to open that up a little bit to everyone.
I mean, that's not on us, but we feel you. Like, we all know the challenges of IQ4K. I was at a center.
Could you please explain?
Oh,
it?
yes.
You guys are talking a little
is
different
IQ4K?
language here.
It's a beautiful acronym that stands for Iowa Quality for Kids. And there's levels 1 through 5. And based on those levels, there's different reimbursement rates for child care assistance. And so each level gets significantly harder and is pretty hard to attain. So
I was at a center that was a QRS, that was the previous quality rating system, was a QRS 3, and then IQ4K came along, which is the new quality rating system, and with this, at the same exact quality program, curriculum, staff education level was a 1 in IQ4K, and that hurt, right? And it's just a star. right? It's just a star, but you work so hard and you care so deeply, and then they tie money to it, and you go, well, gosh, now I need that star, right? But it's definitely increases the quality, right, of programs that might not want to achieve certain levels of programmatic involvement with families or nutritional standards or curriculum, but it's not an end-all be-all when it comes to like what makes a center valuable, what makes a home program valuable. When you mentioned the barriers to participating in wage enhancement, I thought you were going to bring up the fact that you have to be working full-time as a child care provider, and this is like it doesn't totally serve the whole point of wage enhancement, but I think it is an important thing to know is that a center is not an 8-hour program, right? It's not a 9 to 5. So in order to serve families that work 8 hours a day, that work 9 to 5, we have to be open 10 hours. So we don't just have full-time employees. We have a 7 to 3, and then we have a 3 to 6 employee, right? Or we have a 7 to noon, and then a noon to 6. So while full-time means better continuity, it doesn't tell the full story of what's happening in a center, and cooks and administrators, they don't get wage enhancement. No. And being a cook at a child care facility is a doozy. I did it for a year. And absolutely every cook that I've ever met at a child care facility deserves their wages to be enhanced.
I'm just going to speak to a little bit. You wear a lot of hats, and
Yeah.
I do have office staff, and I have we call it nutrition coordinator position for cooking our food, and we're at our 2 centers. We have a level 5 rating in IQ4K. We've worked very hard to get that, and it takes. I mean, I work on it year round because there are things you have to constantly be checking off and making sure you're doing constantly. But like intensely, we spend months focused on like, are we doing all these things up to the visits so that we are ready and getting that, because we do not have a cap on our child care assistants in our center. We serve probably about 90% child care assistants families. If we don't have a level 5, we cannot make it. So we know that we have to do that. And so for centers that don't do that, the only thing I can suggest that might be an option is, and I know CCNR does a lot of support with getting the IQ4K in place, but I knew something that NACE is doing right now, the National Association for the Education of Young Children. If programs get accredited, they're asking if they want to reach out and help other programs get accredited. So that kind of partnership might be a way to turn in and say, hey, you've gotten a level so-and-so, would you be willing to help like bring another center up? That is a suggestion I have that could possibly help because I know how hard that work is, and it's list upon list upon list for months and months that just, you're like, how will I ever get this all done? So, yeah, I feel that. That's a tornado.
It is.
Thunderstorm
sounds like
or tornado?
It's a tornado siren.
Severe thunderstorm warning, that's all. Okay.
I would like to address your point about the money being tied to an IQ4K rating. I don't want to say, I was thinking it's another one of those unintended outcomes, but I don't think it necessarily qualifies as unintended, because there was some intention there of, you know, if a program is receiving more money, they should be providing higher quality care. And we want to ensure, that's the only way we can ensure that is through this, going through this process of getting this rating. But when the IQ4K process was created, you can't take into account every type of program and, a program like yours where one person is expected to do all of these things, right? So I would say, and we can talk afterwards if we need to, working with your CCR&R consultant is critical to get through that process, and we may be able to help you find some ways to work through it. And like Jana said, if you know someone else who has done it, picking their brain, how did you do this? I was just at
Maybe copying their policies.
Allison?
We share, we're not copying, we share them.
Sharing advice on how you wrote your policies, maybe.
Yeah.
But, talking with other people and other center directors that are in a similar situation to you. How did you do this? But also just using the resources that are available to you. We don't want anyone to not be able to access that funding that could be critical to your program, like Jana said it is for hers. So maybe just getting creative and talking it through with someone to help you find a way to make it happen.
Is there any current legislation in the Iowa House and Senate that you would find helpful or not helpful this year?
I'm sorry, I haven't been tracking it. I'm opening a new center right now, so I have not been able to attend to it as well as I would like.
I just, no, I'll let you, I don't know much about empowerment, but I was going to say, I just saw one, and it's not directly related to childcare specifically, but there is a bill that I've heard about. I don't know where it is in the process right now about mandating play-based learning in early childhood programs.
Please. A severe thunderstorm warning has been issued for areas of Johnson County, including Iowa City. The library is now ending normal operation.